the option you want them to have. If we want to fight back against that, if we want to make a change, we can't continue participating in that system by those rules. Really, what we have to do is walk away from that corrupt system completely and form our own, build our own systems. In order to do that, we need to start decentralizing the economy, decentralizing governments, turning towards localism rather than globalism. And that can be done in a number of ways. My primary focus has been through barter networks, which allow people to trade goods and services without depending on the dollar. I think if we're not able to do that, then we're never going to break away from this system.
Right. And Edmund Burke, I believe it was, who said, all it takes for evil to triumph is good men and women to do nothing. And just laying down, being silent, and going along with these big globalized firms, buying from the box stores and more, is only making the whole system worse. So it's good to get the word out about that. And thanks for joining us, Brandon Smith. We're going to be back in a moment from break with more news. And then coming up, we also have Stuart Rhodes, the founder of Oath Keepers, joining us to highlight even more subjects pertaining to the curb on liberty and the attempt to demonize those fighting for it. Stay tuned. Infowars Nightly News.
If you believe in this information and want to support its viral spread, go to the Infowars store at Infowars.com. We've got the new G.I. Joe Infowars t-shirts. We've got the incredible Pro Pure gravity-fed filters available at Infowars.com in the store. We've got a new DVD, Scientists Under Attack, the Don't Tread on Me flag. We've got all sorts of different bumper stickers to help spread the rebellion virally. It's all there, wristbands, citizen rule books in every order. Order online at Infowars.com today. The water filters, the canteens, it's all there. Infowars.com.
And we are back for break. Again, I'm Aaron Dykes, sitting in on the Infowars Nightly News. Just a quick reminder, don't forget about our 15-day free trial for PrisonPlanet.tv through the end of November. And, of course, our great holiday specials where you get 44% off of a yearly membership, $39.95, that you could share with up to 5 friends, or you could get it with 18 physical DVDs, great for gift giving with the membership, that you can also share for $129.95. Those are great specials. You may have forgotten we're in an economic crunch, and we do need your support as well. But back to the news, the most recent and 11th GOP debate focused on, among other things, the Iran attack. The debate, of course, was sponsored by a neocon institute, and even many of the questions were asked by some of these foreign policy wonks who always want more war. Of course, the one candidate they tend to ignore is Ron Paul, but he said if they want to bomb something, it's their business, and they should face the consequences, Ron Paul said. Israel is quite capable of taking care of themselves. He said Americans should not be comfortable with any military action without proper declaration by the United States Congress, bringing up the Constitution instead of more cries for war. That's strange. Of course, we have some of the clips from Ron Paul at the debate. We'll give you some of those highlights right now.
I think the Patriot Act is unpatriotic because it undermines our liberty. We have drifted into a condition that we were warned against because our early founders were very clear. They said, don't be willing to sacrifice liberty for security. Today, it seems too easy that our government and our Congresses are so willing to give up our liberties for our security. I have a personal belief that you never have to give up liberty for security. You can still provide security without sacrificing our Bill of Rights.
And that was in response to Newt Gingrich really calling for more Stasi-like behavior here at home. Of course, the rest of those highlights are up at Infowars.com, and I'm sure you could find the rest of the debate elsewhere on YouTube. No reason to go to CNN to watch it. Now, in the food safety realm, a new food bill in New Zealand is alarming because it appears to take away the human right to grow food. The new bill would make a quote, privilege and not a right to grow food. And it goes on to discuss Yeah, the lack of supposed right to grow food and share it other than government-authorized food makes it illegal to distribute food without authorization and defines food as anything including nutrients, seeds, natural medicines, essential minerals, and drinks, including even water. All your just most basic rights. And there's a whole lot more in this article from Investment Watch, but a troubling sign, of course, as we see similar moves here at home. In other news, BPA has been found to spike 1,200% after eating a can of soup, according to a new study. This is a report in AFP. And it says people who ate canned soup for 5 days straight saw their urinary levels of the chemical bisphenol A spike 1,200% compared with those who ate fresh soup. Of course, you've seen our reports warning on BPA over the years. They've known what it does for decades, and yet there have only been warnings and calls to ban it in more recent years. And while it's encouraging, there is a trend to ban many of the plastics and food cans that have BPA. A lot of the substitutes are just as dangerous. You saw that report with Mike Adams last week. Now, also from Mike Adams of naturalnews.com, a great article where he outlines 10 outlandish things the scientific controllers have in mind for you in the near future. And just to give a little background on this article, it really is preferencing a lot of the long-term goals the globalists have outlined, the kind of stuff the Huxley family has been closely tied to, portrayed in Brave New World, among other things. And Mike Adams writes about the corporate-driven science, which is different from the real science we need to explore our universe and find solutions. But instead, this type of science has its own agenda. It's partially profit-driven. And obviously, there is a control attempt in place as well. And he's got a long list here. We'll go through a lot of it. He talks about the organ harvesting from genetically modified patented pigs. This is something in the near future. We've reported on it in some of Alex's YouTube videos and a whole lot more. It's a cross-species human-pig hybrid, and they're going to grow supposed replacement organs, all genetically modified. Who knows if it's safe, but obviously it'll be sold at a premium. So whose life will it save? Those who can afford it. That's the kind of thing you will see in the future technocratic state. You also see the rise of behavioral vaccines to rewire your brain and eliminate dissent. Now, what exact form this may come in and when is somewhat in question, but this type of chemical lobotomy was talked about in the early 50s by very like Bertrand Russell, who speaks for the elite directly. You've heard before about his quotes, including how diet, injections, and injunctions will create the kind of character the state desires, about how they'll have a separate class of people, the intellectual ruling class, and other types of information for the dumbed-down masses that they only use for their benefits to society. And you've seen also proposals to put things like lithium in drinking water ahead of fluoride to help keep mood in check and more. You've seen proposals for vaccines that will curb mood, fight addictions, fight obesity, and a whole lot more. But really look at what direction this is all going. Now, Mike Adams also talks about the centralized remote monitoring of all your health statistics and vital signs by the police state. He's predicting this will go much further than just digitized medical records on some database. It'll go much further than the secret database of blood that they've been collecting for several decades. States like Michigan have been fighting against it, but really, this is something that was outlined in George Lucas's film before Star Wars, which is all about the rise of the New World Order technocratic state, THX 1138. I don't know if everyone has seen that. Now, THX 1138 really is a dystopic Brave New World Order themed movie where, among other things, you are forcibly medicated, and when the protagonists stop taking their drugs, they're convicted of illegal drug avoidance. That's exactly the kind of thing Mike Adams is talking about here. And it may seem like fiction, but this stuff is pre-programming for the direction we know these New World Order entities are going. And by the way, George Lucas talked about the New World Order, knows all about it. Mike Adams also brings up the total secrecy of all food ingredients, sources, and places of origin. This is already underway. As you well know, the GMO powerhouses have fought and fought to keep labeling off of their genetically modified foods. They don't want people alarmed about the fact that genetically modified foods may have bad consequences. They don't even want people to know the differences. And most of all, they don't want to be able to link any of the bad effects back to those companies specifically. They want to keep the burden of proof extremely high. And that leads to other dystopic things. But the idea of keeping where, how, and what your food is made of is very disturbing indeed. He also predicts the complete criminalization of home-produced foods and medicines, forcing total reliance on factory food production. Not only do they want centralized control of everything in your life from food on down, and all the big government subsidies for corn, soy, and the rest of it have gone a long way already towards that. They want to keep you from that kind of independence. And it may surprise you, but founding fathers, including Thomas Jefferson and others, warned that the power of government would take over the power over food and medicine as well. And they warned about it back then. That's part of the reason they wrote the Constitution and brought in the Bill of Rights. Mike Adams also warns about the unleashing of global bioweapon pandemics through seasonal flu shots. And yes, it may surprise you if you haven't studied the issue, but they do introduce diseases, whether on purpose or not, through these new inoculations and the very controversial way they are produced. And yes, it does have a population control aspect that could, among other things, dumb down or eliminate lower IQ people the state does not want anymore. He also predicts the total government control over your reproduction and genetic code of your offspring. This is also happening. You've seen that in themed films like Gattaca, but it's really the rise of A, global infertility since the rise of global government, and it's B, a Brave New World Order system where the state authorizes who's born, and they will hold the solution for infertility at a cost, at a premium, and only those the state approves of who work within the state systems will be allowed to have children. It's sad but true, and if it doesn't seem possible, I encourage you to do further research. He also predicts wireless brain implants used by law enforcement to pacify crowds, and the genetic engineering of super soldiers, as well as the use of electromagnetic activation of metals and crystals injected in you through vaccines that could cause you to stand down or be immobilized. It could all be done in the name of science. And since at least the 20s, the Rockefeller Foundation and other powerhouses of finance and influence have controlled a lot of the research and development of science. Unfortunately, things are going in that direction. You've seen the crackdown on farms, vitamins, raw milk, and a whole lot more. And we better be on watch for this kind of thing. There is a transhumanist agenda, by the way, and that has a lot to do with the Huxley family. Alex asked me a few weeks ago to do a report on Julian Huxley, Aldous Huxley, and their influential grandfather, who worked hand in hand at the Royal Society of Science in the UK with Darwin to use evolution as a wedge for what really was eugenics control. And that report is forthcoming. I've done a lot of research, and I'm going to bring you that in the near future, so be on the lookout for that. Finally, in the news, AllGov has posted really what is an old example, the U.S. State Department's website that attacks conspiracy theories that include September 11th, health freedom, and a whole lot of others. Now, this has been up for a while, but it remains important because this is a continuing attempt to kettle free speech on the internet to find a pretext to clamp down. You saw their attempt to brand the water pump failure in Illinois as a cyber attack. That failed in the short term, but they will increasingly blame all sorts of things on the internet and the proliferation of free speech therein as they bring in more controls there and try to clamp down on the population in general. And so with more on the state's attempt to demonize opposition under the guise of conspiracy theorists and a host of other labels, we turn now to Oath Keepers founder Stuart Rhodes, also a constitutional lawyer and has many other credits to his name. Stuart, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me on.
Now, we were just covering one historical example of, in this case, the State Department trying to demonize conspiracy theorists, but it's part of a larger pattern we've seen where people like White House Information Czar Cass Sunstein have openly written papers talking about even outlawing conspiracy theorists, talking about infiltrating groups that have views counter to the state and a whole lot more. Are we seeing this kind of thing playing out now as they continue to demonize patriot groups like the one you founded, groups like Occupy Wall Street, and everything else going on in the current spectrum of political activity?
Well, sure. It's all part of an information war. That's what you guys are calling Infowars, right? So it's the same thing that's been going on for a long time. They have managed to monopolize the media. When I was a kid, there was only NBC, ABC, CBS, etc. And now they have to compete with us on the internet. It's kind of like our printing press. And so it's a powerful tool. And so they know that the truth is, it's the dagger in the vampire's heart. And so the only way they could possibly fight it